Good morning, guys. Welcome to another video, and in this one we're going to talk about Malaysia or the Philippines. What's the best place to live? Malaysia, beautiful tropical climate, lovely beaches, some nice islands, great infrastructure, Sepang MotoGP circuit, beautiful temperature the whole year round. And then we've got the Philippines, more than 7,000 islands, beautiful white sand beaches again, cheap cost of living, and lovely people. So let's get into the video. So the first thing I want to talk about is accommodation. In Malaysia, we'll start with Malaysia. In Malaysia, the accommodation is, I would say, more expensive than the Philippines, but I think you probably get more better quality. Again, this is a generalisation, so don't shoot me down in flames here. But in Malaysia, especially in the bigger cities like KL, I think I lived in Malaysia for 8 years, so I have experience there, and we were paying. It was 3,500 Malaysian ringgit per month, but that was a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom apartment with access to swimming pool, gym, all the facilities. So, you can get a lot cheaper than that if you're going for like a 1-bedroom or something like that. In the Philippines, you will pay a lot less. Now, it depends where you go. Obviously, if you're in Manila or somewhere that's popular with expats like Cebu or Dumaguete, you're probably going to pay more than other provinces, but you're still paying less than what I would expect in Malaysia. So the second thing I want to talk about is infrastructure. Now, if you're in Manila, you'll have better infrastructure than other places. Obviously, Manila is the capital city of the Philippines. When you go into the province, now again, it depends on which province, you're going to find the infrastructure is maybe not as well developed as Manila or some of the bigger places like Cebu or Angeles, or even Davao, So that's something to think about if you're thinking about maybe living in the province. Now, in Malaysia, the infrastructure is different to the Philippines. It's what I would say more advanced. For example, you can travel from the south of Malaysia in Johor all the way to the north on the border with Thailand, and the infrastructure, the roads are good. You've got expressway more or less all the way past Penang, up to Kedah. It's expressway or major roads. So Malaysia, from an infrastructure perspective, is definitely more advanced than the Philippines. When it comes to services, I've never lived in, you can't call it province in Malaysia, but I've never lived outstation. This is what we say in Malaysia when you go out from KL, we go outstation. So I've never lived outstation in Malaysia, but I've been, obviously. So I know when you get outstation, it's obviously less developed. Of course it is. But I think Malaysia wins when it comes down to infrastructure. The thing with the infrastructure in Malaysia, when we were there, I had they call them super bikes. I had it's not a super bike that we as Europeans would call it. I had a 650cc Kawasaki ER6F. I also had a Benelli TNT 600cc 4 cylinders, and I had a KTM 200. Now, I wouldn't get a big bike. In the Philippines, it's pointless because the roads are not good enough. Whereas in Malaysia, you can go fast speeds. I remember when I bought the Benelli 600cc in the state of Pahang, which is about 2 to 2.5 hour drive from KL, and it's expressway all the way. You pass Genting Highlands coming into KL, but my friend, my good friend from Malaysia, and he took me to Pahang in his car. I ended up buying the bike there and then, and I rode the bike back. First thing I did when I got onto the expressway was check it out. How fast can this thing go? So I was shocked how fast it was, 180 in a heartbeat. But you couldn't do that in the Philippines. They just don't have the roads, you know. So the next thing I want to talk about, number 3, is cost of living. I'll tell you right now, Philippines wins hands down. Having lived in both countries, the cost of living when it comes to accommodation, when it comes to food, when it comes to utility bills, internet services, etc. I think Philippines is a lot cheaper than Malaysia. When it comes to internet access, the one thing I would say is that you'll get more for your money in Malaysia. You get faster internet, maybe for the same price as the Philippines. But the one difference we had was in Malaysia we couldn't get fibre, whereas in the Philippines we've got fibre. So obviously that makes a difference. So what about entertainment? That's the next thing I want to talk about. So entertainment can mean anything from sort of bars, restaurants, nightclubs, that type of thing. In Malaysia, I would say you've got more options, certainly in KL. But then again, Manila, you know, it's a big city, it's got everything you want now. The one thing I would say is, I think if you go out from KL, you've maybe got more options when it comes to restaurants, bars. Not by much, but I would say Malaysia, you've probably got more options. And you'll find that you can get more of what maybe you're used to, if that makes sense. You know, like Western food. That's just my opinion. So, what about tourist attractions? This is a difficult one because, to me, a tourist attraction could be a beach. In Malaysia, we'll talk about Malaysia first. There are many tourist attractions, you know, Batu Caves, you've got Genting Highlands with casinos, and the zip line, cable cars. Whereas in Philippines, you've got many beach resorts. I would say there's more sort of tourist attractions in Malaysia when it comes to diversity, if that's what you're looking for. But, you know, you'll find in the Philippines, there's loads to see, and there's many islands to visit with different, I would say, different cultures. Certainly the people can be different from one area to another. Maybe not so much in Malaysia. Number 6, schools. Well, in any big city, you'll be able to find international schools, whether it's Manila or Kuala Lumpur. When we were there, our son, he was going to what we would call kindergarten, you know. And there's a lot of choices in Malaysia. And they have a similar thing, so they have free schools and paying schools. Same in Malaysia, same in Philippines. So from a cost perspective, I think in Malaysia the schools are more expensive. The fee-paying schools are more expensive than in the Philippines. That's from what I know. Obviously, they can vary, of course they can. But as a general consensus, that's what I think. Okay, the next one, healthcare. If you've watched some of my previous videos, one of them was when I was in hospital in the Philippines. Now, I've also been in the hospital in Malaysia. Uh, don't know why I'm laughing, but I had two hernia operations in Malaysia when I was there, both within sort of 6 months of each other. There was a reason for that. The first one, they didn't put a mesh inside, and the second time they did, which fixed the problem. Now, I had health cover when I was in KL through my company, so it didn't cost me anything, but I know how much it did cost. So the hernia operation cost about 1,800 UK pounds. I think it was around that. Now, I haven't had any major ops in the Philippines. I just had some painkillers and antibiotic meds. So I can't compare, but I think it's more expensive in Malaysia for something like that. It's a lot cheaper than the UK by far. You know, I would say half the cost. You know, in the UK you can pay anything between £3,000 and £4,000 for a hernia operation. So Malaysia is cheaper than a lot of places, but I think the Philippines is cheaper. So what about locals and culture? Malaysia is a Muslim country, but it's very diverse. They have a large Chinese population. They have a lot of Indians, Bangladesh, Southeast Asian countries, and a lot of Brits, Americans, etc., Europeans. So I would say Malaysia is more diverse than the Philippines. Philippines is obviously a Christian country, but the one thing about Malaysia is they celebrate every single religious holiday, which is good in a way, especially if you're getting paid for public holidays. But that's the main difference from a cultural perspective. Also in the Philippines, I would say that English is better spoken. They do speak English in Malaysia, but not as good. I don't know why that is, if it's related to the schools. Obviously they get taught English at the schools, but I found that in the Philippines, English is better spoken than in Malaysia. Food-wise, I prefer, I think I prefer Filipino food compared to Malay food. Malay food, they use ingredients that don't agree with me, like sambal, and they focus a lot on like small fish, anchovies. Yeah, there is some Malay food that I like, but I find that there's more choices with Filipino dishes compared to Malay dishes. So we've spoken about the language barrier before, and the local people. The Malay people are friendly, but I just feel that in the Philippines, the people are more friendly there than in Malaysia. It's a strange kind of dynamic. I think, you know, because Malaysia is also, I mean, apart from Malaysia is one sort of mainland, but then you've got Sarawak, East Malaysia, which obviously you cannot drive to. I've been to Sarawak once. I went to Kuching, nice place. But I just, you know, you can go from driving Malaysia, the West Malaysia, from top to bottom. Whereas in the Philippines you can't do that. You've got to fly or take a boat, you know. So it's easier to get around in Malaysia, I would say. Having spent 8 years in Malaysia, it was like a second home to me, you know, for a long time. But for me, the Philippines is the best suit for me. So when it comes to Malaysia or the Philippines, for me it's the Philippines. And yeah, you'll know that I've got a Filipina wife and my son. But for me, taking everything into account, including you know, retirement budget, cost of living, etc. That's more important to me than high living. I think if you go to Malaysia and you've got money, I mean, a lot more money than you would need in the Philippines, you can have a good life there. So really, I would say the number one thing is your budget. So, if I could say one thing that Malaysia is good for, and one thing that the Philippines is good for, what would I say? Well, let's start with Malaysia. Without a doubt, infrastructure. I've touched on it already, so I'm not going to go through it again. Infrastructure is the number one thing, best thing about Malaysia. And the Philippines, for me, the people. The people make the Philippines. So before I sign off in this video, I'm going to do a Malaysian sign off, and that is hand on heart. And in the Philippines, what do we do when we're signing off in the Philippines? Apart from all this, what about this? Is that how they do it? Is it like this? Something like that.